Hey everybody, and welcome back to Fresh Set. I'm Sabrina,
And I'm Kevin.
and I forgot how to do this.
Were you surprised? Did the numbers come up for you? The countdown?
Yeah,
It didn't come up
it
for me
did.
because I'm like,
Oh.
what's going on? So if you see me looking like a deer in the headlights,
Yeah.
that's why.
Well, I forgot my name. I forgot what I'm
Well,
supposed to do here.
that's probably worse. You remember
Yeah.
many today's, but you won't
Yeah.
remember your own name.
Exactly. Anyways, it is the first race of the week. Oh, I'm gonna do something different this time.
All right.
We're gonna we're gonna talk about where to find us, because it's always at the end, and maybe people don't listen till the end.
That's true.
So
True. So we're gonna flip the script on all of society.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, if you guys like us and are not annoyed by this intro already, but
Jesus.
you can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts at Fresh Set Podcast, and on YouTube. And then on social media, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and X, also at Fresh Set Podcast. And so just share, like, subscribe,
comment,
all of that.
ask us questions.
Yeah. And
that's great. Like, this podcast's over now. We're done.
Right. I was like, okay, bye.
Oh,
but yeah, so that is where you guys can find us. And I just put it at the beginning in case nobody listens to the end.
Well, typically, if you look at, we're a small time operation here, but even typically you see numbers on podcasts just drop. Oh, there goes the line. Drop right in the last 5 minutes, especially when you're doing all your call outs.
Yeah, exactly. So now you guys are stuck with it. Anyways,
no excuse.
No excuses to not like and follow. So jumping into first race of the season. Yay.
We're back. I've never been so excited for practice.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. I
gotta ask, like, what is this? What are you watching? What's going on today? Like, nothing. They're just going around on a track. What does it mean? Nothing.
Oh, okay.
Antonelli's in first? Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Don't worry about it. So we have the Australian Grand Prix, which it's their first year again, being the first race. Kind of come back
5-6 years, something like that.
And it's just for part of the sustainability of Formula One.
Green initiative.
Yeah. Kind of keeping the races in the regions that they're in to
longer.
Help save the planet. So so jumping right into free practice, which was on Friday.
It was Thursday.
I guess it was
for us. It was Thursday.
Yeah,
it would be Friday there. It was for us. It was first practice was Thursday.
Yeah. So, we see everybody back in the cars. We saw them at preseason testing. Of serious note, the only thing that I can say, and we saw a red flag from Bierman, and it kind of continued for him for the whole weekend.
So. Well, yeah, this is kind of where we're getting our first gauge of what the car is actually capable of. Because there's all the talk about teams are sandbagging. Everybody was saying Ferrari's sandbagging. Yeah. Ferrari's not showing their true potential. They're closer to McLaren than you think, even though they probably looked, I would say probably second or third in the pecking order. But still, they thought there was a lot closer of a gap. Spoiler alert, they weren't. Well, I have the actual gap times, average gap time saved, and I know it's, you take it with a grain of salt because there was a lot of rain, even though they were on slicks this weekend. They were on soft tires, on medium tires, but it's not a small gap. It's not small at all.
It didn't seem like it, and when just kind of jumping forward to the race for a second, you could maybe see a little bit of pace in Leclerc's car. But for some reason, Hamilton, and it could be that he's just getting used to the car, the setup, whatever it was, but Hamilton just couldn't seem to get pace. Leclerc had a couple of takeovers. And
Hamilton didn't seem comfortable. He didn't seem comfortable even on the radio.
No.
He was, I don't think he likes the voice on the other end.
Nope.
He was, we'll fast forward ahead a little bit. Yeah. It is pissing rain. And you just want your engineer to shut up so you can focus. But I mean, you can tell that where that relationship is not developed yet.
Yeah. they're just not best buds yet.
No.
At all. So I mean, we'll get into the race in a little bit, but and so FP1 Bierman has a big snap and then red flagged, and then we resume. But with 55 seconds left of the session, George Russell.
Last lap George made an appearance in the first practice, and he also had a big crash. So I was
done.
I was that Leonardo DiCaprio meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where I'm just pointing at I'm pointing at the screen like there he is, there he is, right there.
Yeah. Well, there he was. And that was kind of it. You kind of got to see from before free practice, we had heard that Red Bull had come in with 15 updates since testing, which was 2 weeks ago. So I don't know if they were
wing
updates.
Adjustments. They were all various different things. Like I said, wing adjustments, maybe like they weren't huge body upgrades. They're changing their inlets for their cooling system or anything. But they were small modifications to where they can catch, airflow better or, their aero upgrades. Nothing significant to a power unit or whatever. But just small little touches where they could kind of try and get, 100th here, a 10th there, maybe. Yeah.
Which, kind of helped because they looked better.
They needed it.
They looked better in free practice and the race than they did in testing. So were those things that they just kind of held back from testing and then they're just like, let's just throw them in now? Or
that's also a possibility.
Yeah. So
actually their nose was different. I think that was the biggest thing that came out of this weekend is their nose was completely different. Even Max was running during practice a different nose than Liam. I guess just so we can compare the two. But.
To compare, then we went over to quali, which was on Saturday, and we start the session Q1.
Well, hold on. Hold on.
Yeah, sorry.
Hold on. We had Behrman with the red flag on Friday, on the Thursday, which also eliminated him because they're repairing for FP2. Yeah. They were thinking they might have gotten back out for like the last 4 minutes of FP2. Didn't end up happening. Yeah. He goes back out on the Friday for FP3, which for anybody that doesn't know, I'm sure most of you do, but for anybody that doesn't know, there is from the start of FP3 to the start of the qualifying, there's a 4-hour gap. You have the 1 hour practice and then there's a 3 hour at the end of practice. Ollie crashes again and red flags a session again.
Yeah.
Like these people, it wasn't a huge damage.
It's enough, but
it's enough. But you look at the mechanic. This is Williams territory that we had last year at the beginning of the season.
Yes. Yeah. And they're just the cameramen are smart. They immediately just pan to the garage, and everybody's just like wincing, holding their heads. So funny. So he has that damage really in FP3, and then somehow they figure it out again. They get him ready.
Thankfully, it wasn't so significant.
Yeah. So he gets ready for quali, and we start the session. This is all 20 drivers, and I want to say his first run out immediately. He's like, something's wrong with the car.
Yeah.
And gearbox. He does one lap, and then he goes right back in, and it's the gearbox at this point, and they just. Unfortunately, we're not able to fix it, so he had to take the 20th spot, which then ended up being.
Yeah, he gets a DNS. He doesn't even put in a time.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he ends up they say, you know what? Let's just fix the entire, instead of putting a Band-Aid on it, let's just do everything, which they're allowed to do at this point.
Well,
with a penalty.
Yeah,
and
with the
start on
penalty. Because technically after that, he's in Parc Ferme. Parc Ferme, any changes you have, you're going to have some kind of a penalty.
Yeah. And so he takes they decide to take the pit lane start penalty.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well fix it properly opposed to just a Band-Aid. So Q1, then we have Bierman starting 20th, Ocon starting 19th, Lawson 18th, Hülkenberg 17th, Antonelli 16th, which, I mean I didn't think Antonelli would be that low, but
I didn't think Lawson would be that low, and you shouldn't be. Like you replaced Perez because he couldn't get out out of Q3, Q2, Q1, and Q2.
Yeah,
and here he is, not even on the cusp of Q1.
Yeah,
he is 18th.
Yeah,
Sauber had a better time than he did.
Yeah,
it's a half a second margin here.
Yeah, and I mean you have three other rookies, Hadjar, Doohan, and Bortoleto, getting into within all what should be slower.
Behrman, yes.
Slower cars are getting into Q2.
Well, he's in the best car. He's a rookie in the best car. Yeah. And he's had 11 races, and he can only finish ahead of the two Haas's, which is the slowest car on the grid this year so far.
And one didn't start.
And one didn't even put in a time.
And one didn't put in a time.
He's actually, to put it in perspective, he is 5/100ths of a second faster than Esteban Ocon. That's not a lot.
That's not a lot.
That is like half a car. It's a half a car length, essentially.
Well, whoops. Yeah. Big whoops for him. But so then Q2, in 15th, we have Bortoleto, 14th, Doohan, 13th, Stroll, 12th, Alonso, and then 11th, Hadjar, which was awesome for him, I thought. And I mean, not I thought. It was awesome.
Those V-carbs look great.
They did.
Those V-carbs look good. And you know what? Good on Hadjar, because he had, like, his parents came out. Yeah. He had a very, very mostly awesome weekend.
Yeah. We'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll
talk about it. But yeah, he, again, these rookies where you think, and again, they're in cars that maybe aren't the fastest, but they're doing half decent with what they've got.
They're faster than what they drove last year.
This is true. This is very true. So, I mean, I think them, the other three being out in Q2, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. Stroll, Alonso, that's kind of where they have been sitting, or at the end of last season, in that mid 12, maybe 9, 10, but
just kind of know where we don't even really notice them.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't tell you anything that happened, which I'm surprised. I'll talk about it a little bit later. I didn't even look at the Aston Martins. They weren't even mentioned.
Nope.
Not once, unless somebody was passing them.
Yeah. And then we have Q3, which is always, exciting. And we get the McLarens with a front row lockout. So we have Norris in P1, Piastri P2, Max right behind in P3, George in 4th, and then Yuki found himself in 5th.
Yeah, and when I see who's going into Q3, excuse me, I'm expecting Yuki, Alex, and Pierre and Carlos to be. They're going to occupy 6 to 10. Yeah, and we're going to have. I wasn't surprised at all by the McLarens being that high. Max, I thought maybe he could have split the two, but he was, 2 or 3. He was probably going to be in.
Yeah.
George, I'm not surprised by. I thought there was no way that 5 and 6 wasn't going to be the Ferraris.
Yeah.
As soon as Albon, because he was the one, Leclerc put up his time, Hamilton put up his time. Albon comes by, and he doesn't just put up a time. He looks fast. Like that car now looks fast.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a tire that just like that car now looks fast. Looks
Not
quick.
Yeah.
It does. Where he had a little bit of a shake. But
yeah.
That which probably lost him about a tenth of a second, but Albon, not to be outdone, especially with all the talk of signs and how he's going to help the team, puts himself significantly ahead of his own teammate, but also ahead of the Ferraris.
Yeah.
But not by much.
No.
But he not by much to Charles. 0.2 on a tenth and a half on Lewis.
On Lewis, yeah.
Yeah, about 0.02 of a second ahead of Charles, which is not a lot, but still, it's whatever. It's one place ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I think the top 10, the group itself wasn't shocking, like you said, but it was just where everybody.
I was shocked. I was shocked that we didn't have an Aston Martin in there. We had both Williams.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair.
I'll give it. You know what? Like everything
I was
else,
expecting one Williams at least, but
yes, I was expecting one, and I thought it was going to be Charles. Or Carlos. I didn't think it was going to be Albon.
Yeah. Well, fair. I mean, it was a pretty decent run for a while there, though. It looked like Piastri was going to keep P1, and then because Lando also had a lap time deleted and he had to do one more run, and he was able to get P1. So they had the lockout, which for his hometown race would have been nice, but Lando obviously got it, which is fine.
Lando's been on point all weekend.
Yeah, for sure. So then we go to Sunday, race day. We get a notification, or not even notification. We see Liam.
We just see it.
We just see Liam starting from the pit lane, and we text each other and like, why is he there? What's he doing?
Weird, I'm actually looking at the starting grid from this weekend, and it still lists Liam as starting ahead of Ocon in 18th.
Oh,
but it was weird. Anyways,
he took they decided to do.
ChatGPT told me, and I forget exactly what it was.
They did something to the car. I can't remember exactly what, and they
had to do that. They had to change underpark firming conditions again. Yeah. It might have been ride height or something like that.
Yeah.
Where they decide to change something. So he takes the pit lane start. I mean, if you're going to start in 18th, you might as well start from the pit. It doesn't really make much of a difference. You're expecting your car to pass the one other Haas in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody lines up, formation lap. Everybody's cruising along normally, or what we think, and then.
So can I before we get into what actually happened in the race? Can I tell you what I was thinking? Because if anybody remembers, we go back to Australia last year, and Australia last year was the most disastrous race I think you and I have ever witnessed.
Yeah.
I mean, there has been more in the history of F1.
Oh yeah.
We had in the first, was it 1 or 2 laps? We had 3 red flags.
I think it might have been 2.
2 red flags, and then we had 1 later on.
Yeah.
There was 3 red flags in total. It was nobody could get past turn 2.
No.
Last year.
No.
And was it raining? I don't believe it was.
I don't think it rained.
I don't think it rained.
No, I don't think it rained.
I think it was just everybody was getting a little too close. Comfortable with everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
This year was rain, and it had like the ground was wet all day. It had stopped raining for just the start of the race, but it was still wet. There were still puddles everywhere. I was almost guaranteed that we were going to have red flags, delayed starts, which we had a delayed start. Yeah. But I thought it was like red flag after red flag. There was no way, especially with 6 rookies on the grid.
Yeah. Rain, Max.
That this was going to be carnage.
It's just, everywhere. It was going to be just absolute disaster. And before the race really starts, we're on the formation lap. And so, I mean, it happens. We get the camera pans to Hadjar, who is in the wall. We see a yellow flag. He is in the wall, and the car is damaged.
Yeah, that back way. Crofty asks, like, do you think he can get going again? I'm like, the rear wing is almost on the ground.
Yeah,
like it's at his elbow.
Yeah.
There's no
there
way.
was no way. So that became an aborted start, and you could see him in the car, visibly upset. When he gets out of the car, visibly upset.
Walking back after he gets
Yeah,
driven back to the
he is
paddock.
bawling his eyes out. And even the I was gonna say the linesman, they're not
The
linesmen.
marshal.
The marshal
Yeah.
is like rubbing his
Rubbing his
back.
back. Like he is inconsolable that time. And
Yeah,
like that's what
he's
I was talking about.
distraught.
He had a great weekend. He's made it
Yeah,
to F1. He's a young kid. He's early 20s,
yeah,
I believe, if
yeah.
not
I think
21
20. Yeah, I
maybe.
would say 21.
Yeah. And so, he's excited. It's terrible conditions for your first
Yeah,
F1 race.
yeah,
And it wasn't like, so one of the things Australia's a street track.
yeah,
So in certain parts, they've also painted over the white lines. Those fresh paint marks, especially in rain, are basically like
yeah,
you're skating. Like it's
yeah,
slippery. And he did
yeah,
nothing. All he was doing was trying to give it a little gas to get a little heat in his tires, and he lost the back end.
yeah.
His family was there. He was hoping, the best you can hope for is at least to finish the race,
That's it. Start
right?
the race.
And he probably felt that he's
He let everybody down.
everybody down. We see him going back to the paddock, class act from Anthony Hamilton. Shut up, Siri. That's weird.
Yeah.
Anthony Hamilton, who stops him. He wasn't even looking up at that point. And he just
No.
stopped him and walked him basically back to the paddock.
Yeah.
Just consoling him, talking to him, probably talking about all the times he said console Lewis and talk about all these things. You know what I mean? Like just being a dad to him, which is a class act.
Yeah. And I mean, he obviously his parents were there, but it was like Anthony knew where to go to catch him because he was the first person.
The Ferrari paddock.
Yeah. He was the first person to catch him, like, which was just really nice. And then what we did see a little bit later on while they're cleaning up and, there's a safety car going around, Stefano Domenicali also went.
He did, yes, as well.
Yeah, which is not normal. And they were kind of talking about that. The commentators, Crofty and Brundle, were saying, when have you seen the president go? And it was kind of like, but this kid was just so distraught.
Well,
you kind of had
full of emotion, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you saw, and I saw it shortly before we started this. Did you see Helmut Marko's comments?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll talk about it now so we can get out of the way and have to revisit this again. And I have to get so worked up again. Yeah. So basically, Helmut Marko, I believe it was an Austrian media outlet.
Or German or something.
Or German. So had said, he had shown quite an emotional outburst. He had quite an emotional outburst or tearful outburst or something like that. And that it was quite embarrassing.
Yeah.
Now I'm sorry. And I get, Helmut Marko has made his life on being a shrewd businessman, a shrewd decision maker. You can't fault, and I'm not one to show emotion, and I'm sure that Hadjar didn't want to show those emotions in that moment. He was just overcome with the whole weekend, the whole outcome, right on a formation lap to have that happen for something that's not necessarily even his.
It wasn't totally his fault.
It wasn't, I mean, I think it's a combination of things, but
we
call it embarrassing for somebody that you're putting in. Now you have to have this person race for you for 23 more races.
Yeah.
Take your head out of your ass, Marko. Yeah. I know you're old school, but fuck you.
Yeah.
There's no place for it. There's no place for it. Yeah.
That was a low blow.
You want to say it? You want to tell him later on that you can't do that on camera. You have whatever. Fine. Do that.
Yeah.
You don't call him out and embarrass him to the rest of the world. To the rest of the world.
Your own driver.
Yeah.
Essentially, I mean, it is his own driver.
That's piece of shit territory, in my opinion.
Yeah, not cool at all. It just was so uncalled for. And I mean, I don't know Hadjar at all, but I'm thinking had he started and crashed on lap 2, it wouldn't be the same emotion. It was the fact that he couldn't even start.
I think it would have been the same. I think you will.
You think so?
Yeah, I think there's. I think even just for that first race, there's so much emotion tied into it.
Yeah.
To have that, I mean, we didn't see that same emotion from Bortoleto or Duhan, or I can't consider Lawson a rookie, but and They might just be different, and it's fine.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But don't berate your driver.
Yeah.
For something like that. Talk about his driving. Talk about the issue that happened. No problem.
Yeah.
But don't be a piece of shit for that.
Yeah.
When what he needs is support so he can get through the rest of the season.
Right. Like, he's got a race next week and you're like, it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
Anyways, we can go on for that forever. Eventually the race does get going about 10-15 minutes later. And it was a pretty slow start, I thought, for the McLarens.
Max gets a great start.
Yeah, Max gets a good start as well. And so he's quickly up into second, I think, by the second
through, second 2 or 3.
Yeah, very quickly into and he kind of pushes Piastri out of the way. And then very quickly after that, we see Doohan kind of bottom out.
It was lap 2.
Yeah, like his car, he crashes almost in the middle of the track, and so that causes the safety car. His car's out. While they're doing this safety car, trying to get Doohan's car out, they've reduced speed. Then all of a sudden we hear there's another yellow flag in another sector. Sainz has had oversteering. And
he had a snap somewhere.
Yeah.
It was throughout the race, but especially these ones, like it was just they lose that back end.
Yeah.
Somehow. And because they're rear wheel drive.
Yeah.
And they hit that gas in the wrong, quote unquote, wrong spot.
Yeah.
And it's gone, and they're at the mercy of whatever water's on the track, and hopefully they don't crash. Unfortunately, these two did.
Yeah, and those two are out, so we are now down to 17 cars.
Yeah, and 2 rookies out.
2 rookies
Not taking anybody else out, so just ruining our predictions. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Then so that was, a few laps getting both cars off track, which were in very dangerous spots. Safety car on lap 7. And when we have the restart, Max is right on Lando. Like he is attached to his hip. And it takes a little bit of time because they're on inters and the rain, and it's rained a little bit. It's dried a little bit. But it takes a little bit, and then DRS is finally enabled.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think it was about lap 12. But while we're seeing all this, we get notifications of Alonso being a safety car infringement. Yuki gets a safety car infringement. And then later on, Hamilton and Albon also get a safety car infringement, all for kind of the same thing, leaving too much space for the car in front. All 4 of them ended up being cleared.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. The top 3, I would say, when we have that restart and Max is right on Lando, Piastri's also right on Max. Like the top 3 were kind of jockeying DRS.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Lando gets that. I mean, he built like a 2.5 second lead.
Yeah.
And then he's able to just comfortably kind of coast. So he's not, Max has got to push.
Yeah.
Oscar's right on Max, and Max has to push.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily for Max, there's not a lot. I mean, if you want to pass, you got to go on the wet.
Yeah.
So it's iffy. It's iffy.
And Oscar doesn't really. I mean, he's only had a couple of seasons. He's his 3rd season in. So where Max makes the move on the wet.
Yeah.
He knows how to see it. But very quickly, those 3 kind of disappear from everybody else.
Yeah.
They're running their own race up at the front. Everybody else is running.
Yeah, it's top 3 and it's the rest of the pack.
Yeah. And then about lap 17, Max has a lockup, which sends him a little bit wide, and he goes into a puddle. Keeps it relatively on track, and then Piastri is able to take second place again. Yeah, he didn't have to fight for that at all. And so he kind of stays like that for a while. It stays Lando, Oscar, Max.
Yeah.
But rain is coming. And
well, that would be the thing for me. They're hearing about rain. They're thinking about, in 6 laps, you've got about a minute of grade 1 rain or whatever. Oh, and you hear the issues back and forth. You know, is it going to be grade 1? Are you sure it's going to be grade 1? All of a sudden, it gets upgraded to grade 2. It's going to be in the next 2 laps. We think it's going to last 2 laps now instead of 1 lap. It's only going to be a certain section of the track. And my concern for me was because even this year, Zak Brown has gone into thinking, and it's very clear with his signing. So for anybody else that hasn't heard about it, Oscar Piastri just had a contract extension for what is reported the exact same contract as Lando. So Lando had reportedly up until 2026 for reportedly 20 million.
Yeah.
And let Oscar signs to 2027. So the same term as Lando, basically for the same money, 20.
Yeah.
You're basically putting it out there again. We have 2 number 1 drivers.
Yeah. And
the question this going up to was, is Papaya rules still in play?
Yeah. And Zak was one of the team principals that they were interviewing as the race goes. And Crofty says to him, so, you know, what's the call going to be? It's Piastri's home race. Like, if it stays like this, what are you doing? Because Piastri at that time was the faster car. He just wasn't, he wasn't pressuring Lando so much. Again, everybody's trying to determine tire strategy, because if he pushes too much, then he's going to have to come in before the rain comes, and you know, all this. And Zak says, I'm going to let them race.
Well, the radio did come out. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah. Eventually.
So they did say, we're going to let them race. The Papaya rules is basically, you know, keep it clean, don't touch, respect the other driver. Otherwise, you're free to race.
Yeah.
Well, Piastri comes on the radio and says, you know, am I okay to pass? And they said, no, hold position.
Yeah.
He says, well, I'm the faster driver. He said, I'm the faster driver, but okay. So basically, So they're taking that decision making, which, I mean, they need to do.
Yeah.
I get it. He's the one ahead. They're not going to switch him for whatever reason. Fine. I was wondering, are they going to screw with the stop strategy again to fuck their drivers up?
Yes. So I think that was a concern that you could kind of hear from Martin Brundle, was if Piastri stays within 1.5 seconds and they call him in first, that proves the undercut.
Yeah.
So he was basically saying, we're going to tell how this is going to work by who comes in, or what the rules really are.
That choice of the faster tire first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I mean, they just kind of kept like that, and it was just, he was told to hold the position, and he argues it a little bit, but I mean he held it.
At that point of the race, he is the faster driver.
Yeah.
You get to later on in the race, they're pretty much equal.
Yeah.
I'd say the whole way until the rain hits again. And then after that, everything gets kind of thrown out the window.
Yeah. Everything for everybody. Every team, everybody goes to shit at that point. And then, I mean, we kind of touched on it, but Hamilton really, you could really hear the frustration of struggling to figure out Ferrari, figure out the car, figure out his engineer.
He told his engineer to shut up, probably about politely
until it kind of
like
wasn't.
4 or 5 times.
Yeah. And
you know, this guy's just trying to say, well, you can use strategy 1 here. Yeah, shut up.
Yeah.
Let me do it.
Well, and like, it's interesting because I thought Lewis is saying in interviews, I'm still getting used to the car. I'm still learning all the you know, strategies, all the code words and everything. And so I'm thinking it's probably a lot hearing these guys in your ear, but they're saying, okay, this is what you can do. Mode push to do this. This is what you can do. And he's like, I can do it. And it's like, well, then the next radio is him turning around asking, hey, what are we going to do? What's
yeah.
So it's kind of like, what do you want him to do?
Well, the big one was where the engineers said, telling him, you know, K1, you can use K1 is available.
Yeah.
And Martin had put it out saying, you know, that is basically your overtake. You can use the extra energy to overtake. Yeah. That I could kind of see, like, yeah, I get it. I can overtake.
Yeah.
It's piss and rain. It's wet.
Yeah.
Like, let me take control of this. Siri's going to go off here a second.
Jeez.
Stupid bitch. Anyways, I hate Siri. But yeah, it's kind of like, don't tell me the obvious things.
Yeah.
Like, I know. Just stay out of my head for that point. You want to tell me I'm in danger of an overtake or an undercut or something, or the person I'm racing has come into the pits. Fine. Tell me the pertinent information. But but the rest of it, like, I'm literally in a fight for my life here. So just stay the fuck out of my head.
Well, and I think the other thing too is we have a team like Mercedes with Bono, where they were a well-oiled machine, where we know Ferrari has struggled for years of kind of having this conversation with their driver of
making calls.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think?
Discernible calls, yeah.
Yeah, where Mercedes was like, we're doing this unless, Lewis, you think it's like a dire need for something else. This is what we're doing. So having long chats. I don't. Well,
that's kind of that message Lewis too. Wants. Like, by the way, K1 is available.
Yeah.
Should you want to use it? Like, no, just give me a clear cut.
Yeah.
Information, and that's all I need.
That's all we need.
I mean, I've done this for 25 years.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. So I mean, you could see that there was a little bit of getting used to.
Yeah.
But I understand both sides. Like, I understand for like the engineer being like, hey, do this, like, maybe not the obvious ones. Because again, Lewis has been vocal about, getting used to everything and all that. So, but whatever, they'll figure it out eventually, hopefully. So lap 34, Alonso has this is when we hear about the Aston Martins, finally. Alonso has a big spin and donuts basically into the wall, which causes a safety car. And at this point, it has kind of stopped raining. So the track is drying. Everybody's kind of contemplating, do we come in? Do we, change tires? And then this happens and everybody is into the pits to switch tires to go on to either. And it was a split.
And in hindsight, you kind of see now today they've analyzed that more. It seems that Gasly had gone into the gravel trap, maybe sprayed up some gravel into the track. That might have caused them to spin. It also might have been the curve and the white lines. Who knows?
Yeah. And I mean, it happens when it's raining, when you've got the tight roads like that. It's going to happen. But you see everybody go into the pits, and every team and almost every driver, because some teams, they split what they did, switched to mediums or hards.
Yeah.
Except for Haas. Haas switched out their old inters for new inters.
Yeah.
Which I guess kind of made sense.
But did it?
But not.
But did it?
Yeah. So Alonso's accident takes a while to clear up, and it's lap 43 of 57. And the restart's about to happen. And as they're, driving around behind the safety car, getting ready for this restart, there's all this talk about this massive cloud that you can see.
You can see it. Yeah.
And it is like, it's coming. It's going to be heavy. We're probably going to need inters, but then it kept switching, whichever team you were listening to.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where everybody kept saying, and reports of the amount of rain were about the same. They said category 2, category 3 rain. So it's a heavy rain. Like, you need boots, galoshes, you need a rain jacket. You need just stay indoors because the wind's going to pick up. We're 2 steps from a hurricane here.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be good. And so some teams are thinking, it's on part of the track. Some think it's going to be the whole track. Yeah. Either way, it's going to be a significant amount where you're going to need inters.
Yeah.
If you tell me 2 to 3, category 2 to 3, and you're in one sector, if you have to gingerly go across one sector of the track, you're losing half a second a lap.
Yeah.
I would say, right?
Yeah.
If you don't put it yourself into a wall.
Right.
You're probably losing about half a second.
That's the thing, is you have to keep it on track, going slowly while someone else has the right tires and they have slowed but they're still going faster than me on slicks.
And it becomes like we're close enough in the race. Where you said it was 47, 48.
Mm-hmm.
We're close enough where it's like, do we take the chance to go all the way on slicks, which doesn't seem like a great idea, or do we try to bump it a lap or two, try to get lucky that rain, everybody switches to inters, they're a little bit slower, we can gain 10 15 seconds in a couple of laps, and maybe we can get essentially a free-ish pit stop where we can get onto the wet tire. And the only team I see do that, or at least the only team of note, which it was 1:00 in the morning, so I wasn't actually screaming at my TV, but I wanted to, was Ferrari.
Yeah, and they did it with both drivers.
They did it with both drivers. They asked their drivers, what do you think? What do you think? Their driver's like, I don't know. You tell me. Yeah. You're looking at the weather. Yeah. I'm looking in front of me. I can't tell what's coming. I don't know when it's coming. I can't see the track until I'm on it.
Yeah. So, and then I'm off it.
Yeah, exactly. And so most teams make the decision to pit within either they stop both of them or they stop one after the other over a lap. Yeah. Ferrari decides to go 2-3 laps.
Yeah.
On these medium tires.
Yeah.
And completely destroys everything they've worked for.
Yeah.
Up until this point.
Well, and it's interesting because McLaren decides to pull the trigger and they're going to switch to inters, and Lando was kind of saying, guys, we better do it now. I'd rather stop before the rain than during the rain. Fair. And so McLaren decides that they're going to do both. They double stack them, which was a very tight double stack because they had a bit of an issue on Lando's. They brought Lando in first. And I think once Red Bull realized that they were doing a double stack, they had told Max to come in, and then they said, wait. They made Max go around one more time. He was struggling to keep it on track. And he had built up, at that point, because the McLarens had gone in, he had built up, I think it was about a 21 second gap. And they were like, this is perfect because by the time you come back around, it'll be, it was a 19-second pit stop kind of thing. So he should still come back out in front. It didn't work out. It didn't work out. But then
we saw Max had to go pretty, even at that point, Max had come pretty slow. Like he was losing the back end at every single corner. Yeah. He looked like a tadpole swimmer. He was every single, that's how wet it, like that's how quickly it changed. And that was a lot to do with the wind. The wind was pushing that weight around all over the track. And we didn't mention too, like Liam Lawson, we were talking about the Red Bulls. They didn't have to double stack because Liam had gone off on lap 46.
Right. Yeah. So he was,
which I kind of smiled about.
Just a little
we'll get into it after.
Just a little bit.
Well, yeah, just a little.
Yeah. Just a little smirk.
Yeah.
But so at one point we're looking at the screens and it is saying Lewis Hamilton in P1.
Yeah.
And it's like, but he's on
both Ferraris were 1 and 2.
They
were both on mediums. They were both on mediums.
They were both on mediums.
Yeah.
And it's like, hold on. They're staying out. Can they actually do this? And it was starting to stop raining.
I didn't even think that. I never thought, can they actually do this? I'm like, no. You watched Max. Like, you have the feeds. You can see everybody. You can hear the radios. You can see Max is one of the best drivers in these conditions.
Yeah.
Is struggling. Yeah. And he's losing probably about 3 seconds on that one lap.
Yeah.
On these tires. What are you doing?
So, yeah.
You're behind him. You could just make that go follow him in. You can see him struggling and then just come in.
Yeah.
And you would have come out ahead of him.
Right. It really didn't make sense. Then we see Oscar. So they end up, how does that work? They end up going into the pits.
Yeah.
Oscar gets, so it kind of resets. So, the McLarens head back up to first and second. Max gets into third. And then really how it was before, it sets back up. So they're back in.
He comes out not far behind. Like, he lost time, but he came out right behind Oscar.
Yeah. And Oscar spins and kind of beats. Yeah. He goes wide. That's
both
what
him
happened first.
And Lewis, him and
Lando
go off.
Yeah. They go wide. And
as they're rejoining.
Yeah. Oscar goes over more of the gravel
He does,
than Lando
yeah,
did.
he does.
And he just, as he gets back on track, he loses the back end and goes right off the other side onto grass.
Yeah. The way he comes in at a turn, and he can't make that angle, and he just it's not happening.
And he's just sitting there on the grass and beached on the grass, just like reversing.
It is Lance Stroll in Brazil beached.
Yeah.
And like he looks like, and his wheels are spinning. He's like, well, he's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I lost money.
I thought he was
anyways,
done.
but there's no way. Like, he's done. He's gonna get out. It's gonna be another safety car.
Yeah.
This guy does not stop.
No, he doesn't stop. He gets the car off the grass. He's in.
It took him 3 minutes.
Yeah.
3 whole minutes. He was a lap down when he got back up.
Yeah. He kept moving those tires in that car. And I mean, at this point, I think there's 14 drivers left, and he rejoins, and he rejoins in 14th. And at this point,
no, he did not. Behrman was so far down that he actually rejoins behind Ocon, ahead of Behrman.
Yeah,
and he was stopped for, and I'm not exaggerating, probably close to 3 minutes.
Yeah, yeah,
close to it.
Just
2.5.
Switching around on
the grass, and you're still able to not come out in last.
Yeah,
how is that possible? Ollie Behrman had the worst.
Weekend. Worst weekend. Absolutely.
Well, not worse than Hadjar, but
yeah,
pretty close.
Yeah. And I mean, then we everybody's on the right tires at this point, and this is probably lap 52,
something like that.
57.
Yeah.
And now the track is truly drying to the point that Crofty and Brundle are like, do these teams have time, or is it dry enough to switch back over to softs, let's say? And it's like, no, there's not enough time.
It's could dry possibly enough, but the amount of time you're going to lose because everybody's been so bunched up.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
No.
So unfortunately, with Oscar's spin, this promotes George Russell, who we have not heard at all.
No, we saw him. We saw him when he came around a corner because they were watching the two McLarens and Max.
Yeah.
Because he was behind Max.
We just didn't hear him. He literally ran his own race for the whole time. And he's now in third. And for some reason, they end up deciding to turn DRS back on for, I want to say, lap 55.
Yeah.
And at this point, Max is on Lando and just going for it.
Trying.
And he tried and he
never, I mean, he had DRS, but I think he had a look on one corner.
Yeah.
But he was never really in contention. That McLaren was just too quick. He knew that he wasn't making it.
Yeah, I mean, if ands or buts, there was a couple more laps, maybe, but still.
Well, I don't even think so. I mean, and we heard Norris's engineers saying, you know, this is your race. Just you've got the pace in the car. Just keep it going. All Lando had to do was drive the car the way it's supposed to be driven, not have to take any extra measures. Doesn't have to, grip that wheel a little too hard. Do things to defend. He's got the pace in the car. Max is the one who has to push. Make Max make that mistake.
Yeah, pay attention. Just pay attention and drive.
And Max knew that. And you can tell when Max knows he's done the way he gets out of a car. Because he was smiling, hugging Landon. He's like, I had no chance. Great. I made second. Awesome. It was happy.
He's happier when he finishes in second. I don't like. Yeah. He loves it.
Yeah. So, he's like, listen, you did what you had to do, but
yeah. And I mean, I think it was overall. It ended. Like, there was a bit in the middle there that it was kind of boring, but overall, it ended up being towards the end really exciting because you were just like, holy shit, this is happening. Like, what is going to happen?
Yeah.
Can these guys keep it on track? Max is off. This one's off. Oscar's off.
Oscar does make it back to P9.
He does.
From a lap down. Still, that's how truly fast that car is.
Yeah.
From down a whole lap.
Yeah.
Making it to P9. And still gaining some points over the Ferrari. He still passes Lewis.
Hamilton.
And you had messaged me like that last ditch effort to pass Lewis on the outside on a wet spot, going into a left-hand turn. It was gutsy.
Yeah,
but he was determined to make up
even if it's
an extra point. 1 point. That's all the difference is.
Yeah.
And he went for it.
He wanted his spot, and he got it.
Good for him. Good for
Good
him.
for him.
Good for him for not giving up.
Yeah. And I mean, it was, I think, overall a good first race. I mean, we literally had everything in the first race. So we had red flags. We had
we did not have a red flag. Oh, in the FP1s and P3s. Not in the race.
Yeah, it was an aborted start. Yeah,
it was
true.
An aborted start. They were all safety cars.
Yeah, but we had all of it.
The one thing I will say is the amount of surprise that we have in the finishing points.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, because I didn't look at it until today, because after the race, I just went straight to bed.
Yeah.
If I didn't fall asleep on the couch. I'm surprised Yuki dropped so much to 12.
Yeah.
I'm surprised both Hasses kept it on the track enough to say 12 and 13.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything for them.
No.
But they're 12 and 13. I'm not even going to talk about Ferrari because that was their own fault. They shot themselves in the foot. We did see Antonelli did get hit with a 5-second time penalty for, I forget what the infringement was. Anyways, he had finished 4th. He had a 5-second penalty, which he was 2.5 seconds ahead of Albon. So Albon got promoted to 4th. It came out today that they removed that penalty.
Yeah.
After being witness to other evidence.
Yeah.
Toto was in there all night.
Yeah.
Just slamming papers down. Look at telemetry. Look at this. Look at that. They reinstated him to P4. So he is one of only 6 drivers in the last 30 years to have a top 5 finish in their first ever race. So good for him. So we have both Mercedes in 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Lance Stroll has a combined points total more than the Ferraris in race 1. Lance Stroll.
Yeah. Well, and
Lance Stroll. I have to reiterate that.
Yeah.
He drove. We heard absolutely nothing from Aston Martin until Fernando bailed.
Yeah.
And Lance Stroll makes it into 6th.
Yeah.
6th, quietly.
Yeah.
I guess really just being like, nobody cares about you.
Yeah.
Especially in a wet race. It's like, I guess I'm just going to go for a Sunday drive and
I'm just gonna
see
drive.
where I finish. Yeah.
See where I end up.
The definition of somebody who goes for a drive.
Yeah.
And just wherever it takes them, they take them.
He's like, oh, look at that car. Just kept going.
Yeah. And Nico Hulkenberg finishes in 7th. We had a Sauber who didn't get 1 point last year. Nico's also made them 6.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah.
In one race.
In one race.
In one race.
Yeah. So
paying dividends for signing Nico Hulkenberg.
Yeah. I mean, crazy all around, really.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for China because China is also, which is next weekend, is also a potential for rain. And so is Japan after that. So
Japan's always a good race.
Yeah. And so rain is possible in both those locations. So we could be starting this season washed out.
So one thing I did mention was the gaps between teams or cars, people, whatever.
Yeah.
The race pace. Have you seen the actual gap in the race pace? So we had Lando who set the race pace so an average over all laps, what their average was for the thing. And mind you, they're qualifying in the 115s.
Yeah.
Lando's average pace for this race was a 130. Okay, just over 130. Piastri's was 0.05 below that. It's only 0.5 of a second, almost 0.6 of a second, hundredths of a second, excuse me.
Okay.
Slower than Lando. So pretty even there for the McLarens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure him sitting in the grass had affected
didn't help
race pace, his average. Max, who finished 2nd, who was right on Lando's ass for the last third of the race. His race pace was almost 0.7 slower than both McLarens.
Interesting.
And then George was 1.2 seconds slower than the McLarens. Charles was almost 1.5 seconds slower than the McLarens. Lewis Hamilton was 2.14 seconds slower than the McLarens. We are we're poised for the next 6 or 7 races, I'd say, to have a flip where the Red Bulls or the McLarens are now the Red Bulls.
Yeah.
Where they are not the car to beat. They're the car to catch a miracle on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think it was bad for Oscar, but good for Max. Oscar going off. I mean, even Lando going off helped Max as well, because he wasn't as close to them, but they made that little mistake and he ended up getting a lot closer to them.
Yeah.
So
otherwise it would have been just,
and
they would have coasted.
Right. And that's something that Max is good at, and Lewis was good at too, is forcing someone else to make a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Max is really good at it. Sometimes he puts himself in the middle of the mistake as well, but
all he has to be,
I don't think he forced them to make that mistake.
No, but
either.
All he has to be is Max behind and close, because they know the danger in that.
Yeah.
And they're tightening their grips and they're
looking,
questioning every little step they make.
Yeah.
It's that presence.
Yeah.
It's like the what are they, the prisoners not the prisoners. What the hell are they called?
I don't know.
In Harry Potter, though, the ones that take care of the prison.
The Dementors.
Dementors. He's like a Dementor. Yeah. Just casts this evil shadow.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a Harry Potter fan. I don't know why it took me so long.
Yeah.
Before we've done the race. We've done a couple of things. Before we get into our fresh set and our dirty air.
Okay.
One question for you. Is the Australian Grand Prix trophy the best trophy on the of the year? No?
You think so?
The racing wheel? Not the second and third place, because it's just a silver disc. It is a classic F1 like racing wheel that's happened to be chrome or whatever. I think it's one of
Did I miss that? I need to go look that up.
You didn't, the one that the first place went, like the winners get. The second and third place, they just get.
I thought Lando was holding the.
He was. It was a disc.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, it's bronze around or gold or whatever.
Oh.
It looks like a steering wheel, and it's shaped like a steering wheel. Even the inside looks like the old school steering wheels. Second and third place just get a plain chrome disc. Basically, it says F1 in the middle.
Interesting. I didn't even notice that.
Look it up. I'll cut out the magic of editing. I'll cut out the shit. The quiet time.
Oh, I do see it.
Yes, it looks like, to me, this is probably, if not top, probably top 2. First place.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. I don't know if it's my top one, but
we might have to rank them.
Might be. We're
gonna. Yeah, this is gonna be a downtime kind of game.
Yeah. The trophies.
Yeah, I know. It'll be my last one. It's the French one that they had to kiss one time. But that was terrible. That was absolutely horrible.
Stupid.
Okay, so that was the race.
That was the race. It was
a great introduction back, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was an exciting start to the season.
Yeah.
I think we got to see a little bit of some people, the people that we kind of wanted to see where they're at. The usual suspects, those top 4: the Mercedes, the Ferraris, Red Bull, and McLaren. McLaren, we know where they are. I think.
Well, I'll tell you the biggest stories for me going to race 1 were the rookies.
Mm-hmm.
How is that going to happen? Especially that was rating, and the Williams to me was going to be my biggest looks.
Yeah.
Like what I was more interested to watch.
Yeah, to see what was the first look.
Maybe I like Carnage. I don't know.
Yeah. So fresh scent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mine is a bit of a kind of obvious one. I have to go Kimi.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Anthony Hamilton, but
no. It's kind of part of my dirty air, but I'm gonna go Kimi because I think he did the for being a rookie on one of the bigger teams, there hasn't, and I don't know if this is Toto's doing, they have kind of protected him. There hasn't been too much like spotlight around him. They've kind of focused a lot on the other ones. And I think he just got in the car and drove. Yeah. Kept his head down. And he was there was a couple times that we saw him do some overtakes and he goes for it. Like you can see that this is not a timid, scared rookie. He knows what he's doing. He got his 4th place, which is amazing for a rookie. I think overall, just a great drive from him.
Oh, yeah. He had one particular overtake where he late braked in the wet, and it was impressive to watch. And going around the outside. So that's an absolutely spectacular fresh set.
Yeah.
For me, it's going to sound a little weird. Mm-hmm. Carlos Sainz this weekend.
I know where you're going with this.
You know exactly where I'm going.
I know where you're going with this.
It's not much. I know he DNF'd. Everybody's like, what the fuck are you talking about? We've seen so many drivers, they DNF, they do their post-race interview, what happened, and then they go and they do a debrief. They go sit in the paddock, figure out what the hell happened to them. Carlos Sainz played the ultimate team game, which is basically exactly what he said he was going to do at Williams and how he can help. He crashed. He just post-race interview. He got maybe he did have a quick debrief. I don't know. But then he sat at the engineers table in the paddock, put on a headset, looked at the radar, looked at what everybody else was doing. What would he do in that situation? How can he help his teammate maximize their points, get the most out of this race? And he did that selflessly. Nobody asked him to do it. He just did it. Ultimate team player. Ultimate way to easy way to take a weekend and just write it off. Instead, you go to work. And you do what you got to do. Absolutely amazing to watch that.
Yeah, and I think it's smart to do that because this is somebody that has driven you guys look at the data all day, but he just drove it. He just crashed because of this. So listen to what he has to say. Like,
and taking his experience. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's gonna know. And I mean, and just to see Williams be appreciative of it as well.
He will be a team principal one day.
Oh gosh,
yeah.
Or a strategist or something. Like
he can't be just a strategist. He can't be. No, he's got to take the big bucks.
Yeah, for sure. Dirty Air. This is where I'm gonna go. Anthony Hamilton, Hadjar. No, like
Marco.
Well, that whole sequence.
Yeah, okay. Like, I was gonna say, wait. You start with Anthony Hamilton. I'm like, this is
Hadjar not being able to start. That's just really shitty on your first race. Anthony Hamilton was the light in that moment, and then Marco being nasty at the end of it, just to make it worse.
Do you think that there's so much talk and presence around Anthony Hamilton being that supportive figure, especially with the Ferrari cans on when he went there, that Mark was like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
This is embarrassing. Fuck him.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. I think he's like, you let a Ferrari man come over to and it has nothing to do with that. Yeah. It's just, I think it's a little bit of an ego, and like you said, like old school mentality. We've talked about mental health with these drivers, but I mean, this was a visible. I wouldn't even say it's a mental health moment. He just broke down.
I am all for the old school, tough love kind of. Well, not that I could think. I think Marco's capable of love, but that old school, now you can't keep score with your kids. No, they got to learn when they lose.
Yeah,
I get that. I get the hard teaching moments and all that.
Yeah.
But to kick somebody when they're down,
publicly,
you want to do that. You want to have like I said, you want to talk. Yeah. But you don't publicly strip somebody, basically whip them in the back and have them on display.
Yeah.
That's
your own driver.
Not even for anything for emotions and feelings and all that, but it's just not how you rally a team around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, you're dirty.
That was the easy pick. So I'm glad you picked that one.
Yeah.
I'll pick the other easy pick. Should I?
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
You know what? I could do one, but I kind of like it. I don't want it. Can I do it like a second fresh set?
Sure.
Just quickly. It's a shit thing to do.
Okay.
But I love it so much.
Okay.
It was Zach Brown calling out Red Bull for not picking Tsunoda over Lawson.
Yes. Saw that. Loved it.
In the interview with Sky F1, he had said, they talked about Lawson and they talked about Tsunoda had a great drive. He's like, yeah, he says, you know what? Sometimes they do some weird things with their drivers. But they probably should have picked Tsunoda, but who knows? So just that little kicking you when you're down after qualifying. Yeah. I absolutely loved it. So
I loved it, but I was also kind of like, Zach, be careful what you say.
Keep going.
No, I like it.
He's got two great drivers.
You
just can't decide between them.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
So actually, I'm going to switch my dirty air because it was supposed to be Ferrari. But I'm going to go back to another thing about Marco. Because why not pile on the old guy? Oh. He was asked, and I don't remember which media outlet it was, grading drivers, and he graded Doohan with a C, saying basically he's not an F1 driver. And he graded Bortoleto with a B, but he's not a very great driver. Nobody cares. No. Nobody cares about what your opinions are on the other drivers.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a shit. All we care about, and the only talk that's been, is who's in the Red Bull seats the last.
Yeah.
Round. So you don't have to kick rookies.
Rookies.
Down. And I've got to say that Bortoleto's response to it was beautiful.
Was it Bortoleto or Doohan?
Doohan had said, it's like, whatever, I don't really think about it too much. And they just moved on. Bortoleto come out and said, I respect Helmut Marko. He's put a lot of, he says what he says. He's going to have his own opinion. He's put a lot of great people in those Red Bull seats. He's also probably put more people that have flunked out of F1 out of those seats. Yeah. So it's kind of like, calling him out for throwing darts at a board, whatever sticks, whatever doesn't.
Yeah.
And I love that very professional.
Yeah.
F you.
Yeah.
To Helmut Marko and his bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay? And I know I'm wearing a Red Bull shirt.
Yeah.
And I love when Helmut Marko speaks. I also hate when he speaks.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just
too much.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So it's a double Marko dirty air.
Yeah.
that should be a segment. Double Marko dirty air.
Yeah.
It just has a nice ring to it. But I did love the response from Bortoleto.
Yeah. Yeah. And these rookies are proving to be more mature than
resilient.
Yeah. Than this old guy. So yeah. Well, that's it for this episode, and we will be back next week with another race because we're straight to China.
Yep.
And yeah, so we'll see you guys then.
Yeah, grab a fresh set.